Hi, my name is Ann Sermons Gillis, and I am a member of Unity of Charleston. Now, I have a treat for you today because we're going to meet a member of our church. I know whether you're a member or you're considering membership, that you will enjoy getting to know this person that I know is a very wonderful person. I'd like to introduce Lynn Meffert. Lynn, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. This is quite a unique opportunity and experience.
Well, that's great. Well, I want to get right down to the nitty gritty here. Where were you born?
Oh, I was born in Washington, D.C. in 1945.
All
Um,
right.
and well, I'm not sure if it was Walter Reed Hospital, but I know that it was Washington for sure.
Okay. So that is a very energetically active place. And I know that now you certainly don't live there. Could you maybe just kind of trace where you have lived until now and
Oh
where
my
you live
goodness.
now?
Well, my father was in the Navy during the war, and so that's why we were in Washington, D.C. And we moved back to Mount Vernon, Connecticut, Mount Vernon, New York, which is where his family was from. And then we moved to Weston, Connecticut in 1950. And that was it was an agricultural community. It was an up and coming community of New York uh, entrepreneurs and people who worked in New York, ad agency people and brokers and that sort of thing. So we I actually grew up in Weston until about 1962. Then I moved to Wellesley, Massachusetts, where I went to boarding school. And then I lived in New York City. I went to school in Elmira, New York, at Elmira College. And I graduated in 1967, went to New York City in 1968, was there from 1968 until 69. And then I went abroad on a trip to Europe, and I ended up staying in Europe until 1977. So I
Oh,
landed in Greece for Athens, Greece, for approximately 8 or 9 years, back and forth, of course. And then I came back to Woodbury, Connecticut, which is outside of Danbury. And then I moved to Charleston in I moved to Charleston in 1987 for a year, and worked in Newtown, Connecticut. But then I moved into Charleston to Charleston in 1993, and I've been here ever since in Charleston.
and where do you live in the Charleston area?
In West Ashley, on the Ashley River, fortunately, on the marsh.
Yes. And what brought you this last time to Charleston? What brought you here?
What brought me here was the unfortunate circumstance of my mother's demise. She passed away in 1993. And so my father had passed away in 1990. Mother passed away in 1993. And my brother has lived here since 1978. And it was a serendipitous move because a house came on the market right next door to his. And
Wow.
so I ended up able to buy that house, and so that's what brought me here. So
Wow. Well, you've been on quite a route on this
I have.
trip around the sun, haven't you? Well,
Yes,
are you married or single?
I am married. I have a partner, Jane, and the two of us have been together since 1996. So
I don't think you have any children of your own, but I believe you're a stepmom.
I am. I have a beautiful stepdaughter, Diana, and we have lived together since she was 15. So she's now um, uh, a beautiful young woman. She's in her early 40s. So
Okay.
yeah.
So in terms of your life path, where is that taking you?
My life path has always been in communications, I think. I've always been interested in bringing people together. And so I worked very in publishing for a number of years as a secretary for a group of editors for a magazine called Fine Home Building. And
Oh, what now? Say that again.
Fine Home Building. It's a
Fine
Taunton
home
Press
building. Okay.
publication. They've done a lot of fine gardening, fine woodworking, fine cooking. It's a very enterprising business. I worked with them until about 1990. Um, and in the meantime, when I was living in Greece, I was teaching English as a second language to private students. And I also worked in teaching, editing a publication that was glossy effusion for tourists who were coming through Athens. And so we did a lot of work with folk art production and sort of talking about the traditions of Greece and what was important in their cultural traditions, that sort of thing. So, and then in 1991, after my father died, I became interested in shiatsu acupressure massage. So I was a shiatsu acupressure massage therapist. I went to school training for that. And I did that. So I did that until about 2004. And then when my mother passed away, I became a yoga instructor. And so my parents' passing was kind of opening the door to a more spiritual approach to my my life as a career move, as a kind of more involvement with things that I felt were important to me. So the yoga and the shiatsu, Jane and I got together, and she was the director of the yoga center. We had a business called To Your Health, which was a collective of women, and we put this. We had a wonderful opportunity to bring inspiration and yoga and healthful alternatives to the Charleston area. So it was quite exciting, a quite exciting time.
Well, then I think you went on to the nursery.
Oh, of course, yes. Yeah. So the many incarnations of so in 2005, Jane and I went to China to teach English as a second language, and we taught at a university for 2 years. And then we came back, and the buzzword at the time was sustainability. And so we were really interested in finding ways that we could support sustainability in the environment. And so we became the purveyors of Roots and Shoots Nursery, which we held. We had that business for, I think probably 4 or 5 years. And so propagating plants and having plant sales and introducing people to the wonderful native environment of Charleston and the coastal Carolinas. So,
Wow, and if you go to your house where you live now, a lot of those plants
yeah.
are evident. You can see those.
Mhm.
Beautiful yard, a beautiful place and space. So, how did your spiritual search start? I think you may have alluded to it, but
Well, I probably started at a monastery in Greece when I was told that I couldn't go into the monastery without wearing a skirt. And I said to the person at the monastery, I said, well, my God is your God. And my God doesn't really care what I wear. This was in very bad Greek, but I put the skirt on finally, sort of, and but that's always been my philosophy, sort of that my God is your God, and let's come together with some kind of understanding of a loving God.
I've got to tell you, a friend of mine had a daughter, and her daughter was going to a school, to a church, an evangelical church, and she was wearing pants. And they said, "You're just going to have to start wearing skirts because we don't really want women wearing pants here." And she said, "Oh, that is not a problem." She said, "I just won't come anymore." And she was like doing all this stuff in the church, and they said, "Oh no, that's okay. I guess you can wear
Wow.
pants."
Well, yeah, there's that. Um, you know, it's important for me to understand why things are what they are and why people have set these mores and conditions around, how we present ourselves, that sort of thing. So I didn't really have a spiritual tradition. I did grow up in a church, a congregational church. But I became very disillusioned in the 60s with religion and with the circumstances of the time. And so I pretty much opted out of any kind of religious connection or commitment until I moved to Charleston. And my dad had always said to me, get aligned with the church. The church is, going to give you the community that you need, the fellowship that you need. And I very fortuitously met with Ed Kosak during a shiatsu event that was going on. And I had heard about Unity, but I had never made it to Unity. And Ed had a presence, he had a way about him that just attracted me, and I started to go to Unity. And when I met Jane, she also had been a member of Unity in Virginia Beach. So that was another reinforcing focus for me to become involved with Unity. And it's a tradition, the oneness of our world and the interrelationship of being was really important. So I've just for the past since 2008, I've been a member of the church.
Okay, well, thank you. Well, just in a few sentences, could you give me your philosophy of life?
My philosophy of life: do good, do no harm. Be available to the tremendous possibilities for change that exists in all of us, and be open to new ideas and new ways of doing things and being. It's a challenge. It's a challenge to go through big, serious change. I get comfortable. My expression is, you build a rut and you furnish it. You live in a rut and you furnish it. And that just doesn't work. It hasn't worked for me. And I just think that we have endless possibilities that we need to explore, and we need to not limit ourselves. I try not to limit myself. But I have to, I have to be sensible. I have to be practical. I went to Yogaville, which was where I got my yoga teacher training. And he said, you can go out into the desert, but don't forget to stake your camel. Be prepared, and be practical. Take care of yourself, be responsible, and that's what I try to do. Be responsible, do what I can, help others.
Sounds like a great philosophy to me. And I'm wondering, in terms of your reading material, what do you like to read? What are your favorites?
Well, I'm very eclectic. At the moment I'm reading Stephen King because I've heard so much about him, and I hadn't read anything by him. But I really like to read magazines, and so I read the Sun magazine, which is a wonderful sort of magazine of the common man, and interesting articles and short stories and that sort of thing, poetry. And then, I'll read the New Yorker because I like to keep my finger on the pulse of what's going on.
Hometown, huh?
Well, New York was not really my hometown, but it does have an awful lot going for it. And
Close.
so I like to see what's going on. And I'll pick up a lot of self-help books. I mean, I've got a book here called by Michael Beckwith called Spiritual Liberation, fulfilling your soul's potential. Things that are positive and supportive. There's so much out there. Thich Nhat Hanh is particularly important, and has been a big influence in my life recently, in the past several years, as a he keeps it real simple, and I think that's the important thing, is to get out of your head and into your heart, and that's where the feelings are, that's where the wisdom is, and learning how to live with the feelings, and to listen to the wisdom of the heart, and Thich Nhat Hanh has been instrumental in helping me do that.
Very basic. And how about your passions or hobbies?
Gardening. Gardening is a big one. And travel. I love to travel. Travel is just so dynamic. And also, one of the things that I love to do is the dances of universal peace. And we used to have those at the church, on a regular basis, once a month anyway. And I've done a lot of traveling with the Dances of Universal Peace. It's a great group of people who use dance movement as a way of creating space, and in the sacred moments of being present with each other. It's a really unusual experience, and I just love that. So it's sort of like gardening. You get to know your plants, you get to talk to your plants, you get to look at the birds and listen to what's going on around you. And it's very important to be in the moment. So,
Well, do you, in that context of passions and hobbies, do you have any spiritual practices that you do on a regular basis?
I would say that meditation is probably my biggest spiritual practice. Right at the moment, I'm practicing deep listening. It's part of that meditative aspect, where I allow myself not to be steeped in my thoughts, but more with my breath and more with my intuitive self. So that's where meditation is taking me at this point.
Great. Well, just in finishing and closing, do you have anything that you'd like to close with? Anything I didn't ask you about, or just?
Well, it's just that unity has been a bright spark in my life. I just love the people who are such as yourself, who are just so interesting and open and willing to share their lives, and my father was right, sort of there is a purpose in joining a church and being part of a group of people who come together once a week at least, to explore how we're doing on a regular basis. How is life? How are we handling how are we handling life? So I think it's an important part, with the music and the friendships, and Yeah, I'm glad I'm a member of Unity. And I feel like Unity is coming together. You know, we're coming together uh to really offer something special to people, to each other.
Community and fellowship.
Mhm.
Well, Lynn, I want to thank you so much for speaking with me today, and I'll see you in church.
Yes, you will. Thank you so much for your efforts on our behalf. Thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste.